Hutto County neighborhood rocked by the deaths of two young children at the hands of their mother.
The sheriff says it appears Catorreia Hutto, who goes by the name Tori, murdered her 5-year-old twins, shown here in this picture from 3 years ago, and then to her death in Lake Jessup. West 2's Greg Fox has been following this story for us all day. And Greg, the sheriff says there's been no violent history involving this woman before.
That's right. The sheriff's office has been talking to the mother of Tori Hutto, who spent a few days here at the home that you see here on Alexander Avenue that was owned by Tori, and said that Tori had experienced mental health issues her whole life, but never in a violent way until today. From Chopper 2, you can see a car on a tow truck on the 417 toll road south on the Lake Jessup Bridge. We now know that was 31-year-old Catorreia Tori Hutto's car. One driver saw her parked on the side Friday morning.
Who saw a motorist stop their vehicle on the crest of the bridge, and what appeared to be a woman slide herself out of the passenger window of the car and jump into the St. Johns River.
Seminole County Sheriff Dennis Lima says a short while later, Hutto's body was pulled from Lake Jessup. But by then, deputies had already rushed to her home on Alexander Avenue near Sanford. When no one answered the door, they forced their way in, finding the bodies of Hutto's twin 5-year-olds, Ahmad and Ava Jackson, shown here in a 3-year-old photo.
They went into the house and found the two children in bed who appeared at first to be sleeping, later to identify that they are deceased inside the house right now.
The sheriff says a gun and bullets were found nearby, but there was no sign of trauma, and the cause of the children's deaths is unknown. Authorities say the 5-year-olds were special needs students at UCP Seminole Charter School, but had not shown up since last Friday. The school declined comment. Hutto acquired her house from Seminole Apopka Habitat for Humanity, moving in just over a year ago. They too have declined comment. While the sheriff doesn't know what may have triggered this apparent double murder, he urges anyone struggling with mental health challenges to seek help.
We want to make sure that people know that there's help out there, there's resources out there, there's people who are willing to fund, to love, support, and trust, to lift families up so they don't have to experience this. And I think that
And of course, detectives with the sheriff's office are trying to not only determine the causes of death of the two children inside this house, but also the answer to the question why their mother would take their lives and her own. Live in Seminole County, Greg Fox, West 2 News.
October 20th, 2023. In the tranquil suburbia of Sanford, Florida, a horrifying crime scene unfolded on a fateful Friday morning, shaking the foundations of the close-knit community. It's an unfathomable crime, so tragic and so horrifying. Two innocent children lost their lives at the hands of their deeply troubled mother, and in the heart-wrenching aftermath of this tragedy, there is still no answer to the question, why did Catorreia Hutto murder her children? She would take her own life after killing her kids. From a bridge to her death, authorities made a chilling discovery. A mother's desperate act of despair had culminated in an unspeakable loss. Catorreia Hutto, a 31-year-old mother of twins, had reportedly committed an unfathomable act of selfishness and cruelty before succumbing to her own demons. As investigators entered Catorreia Hutto's home, a monstrous tragedy was revealed. Twin 5-year-olds, Ahmed and Ava Jackson, innocent and vulnerable, lay motionless in their beds, their young lives tragically and senselessly extinguished. Despite the absence of visible wounds, the eerie stillness of their slumber belied the magnitude of the tragedy that had befallen them. The children looked so still and peaceful when they were found. Initially, investigators thought they were sleeping. They did not realize that they were dead until further inspection. The twins' cause of death determined by the medical examiner was homicide by unknown means, with findings consistent with asphyxia death. Toxicology results did not show any drugs in the children's system that could have contributed to their deaths, and there was no drugs found in Catorreia Hutto's system either. Hutto had a history of depression, so possibly it could have solely been her struggle with mental illness which she succumbed to, but instead of herself and leaving her innocent children alive, she chose to take them to the grave with her. As authorities combed through the scene, a grim tableau emerged: a firearm abandoned on the floor, and a small amount of furniture and food, hinting at a family grappling with adversity. What makes this tragedy even more heartbreaking is the two 5-year-olds had special needs. Yet, amidst the remnants of shattered dreams, there lingered a poignant reminder of the insidious nature of mental anguish left unchecked. For Hutto's mother, grief mingled with disbelief as she grappled with the revelation of her daughter's lifelong battle with depression. The absence of warning signs, the absence of cries for help, cast a shadow of bewilderment over the heart-wrenching ordeal. The final moments of Catorreia Hutto's life are eerie, culminating with her dead body being pulled out of a lake in Oviedo, Florida. She drove there on that Friday morning, to the SR 417 bridge into Lake Jesup, and exited her car by climbing out of the passenger seat window. Hutto was last seen from the bridge into Lake Jesup. Her body was later found and taken out the water by local fishermen. Hutto's triggered a wellness check for her twins, who tragically had already been killed by their mother. Hutto had assistance acquiring her home from a non-profit charity that builds houses for people who are financially struggling and unable to afford them. Hutto's mother described how her daughter had a lifelong battle with depression, but said there was no worrying signs or behavior that indicated she was rapidly getting worse. Hutto's mother was in Orlando for the past week, and reportedly she missed a phone call from her daughter's phone number around 10 p.m. on Thursday night. By the next morning, her daughter and 2 grandchildren were all deceased. She said that she assumed it might have been one of the twins accidentally calling her. Tragically, most likely she will never know who was calling her on that fateful night. And she will never know what the voice on the other end of the line might have said. Besides the haunting unanswered questions Catorreia Hutto left behind, all that's left are broken hearts and shattered dreams.